Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, James. How are you today?
I'm great. How you doing?
Enjoying life as always.
I'm sitting down with Jeff Irvine today from the basic course, and I think you're just one of two basic course instructors we have for the resident phase.
That's correct. With the reorganization and the movement of some instructors, there's a small portion of us that'll be conducting resident. The rest of the people within the Army have the opportunity to do the basic course online.
Okay. And how long have you been teaching the basic course?
I've been here since the conception of CES in 2006 and helped design the original courses that are presently now the basic course with some input on the IC course and the advanced course.
Okay, so you've been doing this a while.
I have. I had one short break during that time frame and spent some time overseas operating with forces in the Middle East and had an opportunity, those things that we teach in the basic course about developing teams and working with different nationalities, had an opportunity as one of the directors there to apply those things in multinational and joint forces operations.
And yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I just came off of a developmental assignment as well, working up at our 3-star headquarters, the CAC headquarters. And it's good to have the opportunity to try and operationalize the concepts that we teach our own students in the classroom. And I think it'd be nice if more of us could get out into the operational environment and see how these things work.
Yeah, and I really believe in, you can teach things, but unless you go out there and apply them and you get a better understanding of that. And with that ability to go out and apply what we've learned, I know that the principles that we're pushing in the basic course, which is a direct level leadership course, is right on track for accomplishing the mission, influencing people.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the basic course. Let's see, where should we start off in talking about the basic course? It's 2 weeks long, the resident phase. And typically in our seminars, have, 16 students for you guys?
Yes, normally 16 students from all career fields and all locations that the Army has, Army civilians, which really mirrors what the Command and General Staff College does for the majors who are here for 10 months. They have 16 people in staff groups with all different skills and job titles and foreign officers in those classes. So we really mirror what the majors are getting through the Command and General Staff College.
Okay. Yeah, so as an intermediate course instructor, we focus more on the organizational level of leadership. And so as you'd mentioned, then the basic course focuses more on that direct leadership. And there's a lot of team building, I think, in the curriculum that you guys deliver as well. Is there not?
Right. That's one of the key functions. As a direct level leader, I've got to build teams. And how do I do that? And that's the key thing in the basic courses. We spend some time talking about what is a recipe that I can use to help develop high performance teams that I really want to lead that are easier to lead. And that kind of leads into, so these are there's 5 key outcomes from the basic course. What's interesting about these outcomes, and I'll talk about them in a minute, it doesn't make a difference whether I'm at the direct level, the organizational level, or the strategic level. I've still got to apply these just in a different context, having a broader point of view when I look at it. Like the first one is think critically and understand Army basic problem-solving methodology. As a leader, I've got to be able to understand myself. And to understand myself, I've got to understand how I think, what influences me as I'm making these decisions, and is there a model, a way that I can make decisions and solve problems. And we really focus on the Army 7-step problem-solving model, which leads you into the second course outcome, which is communicate effectively, speaking, writing clearly, concisely, and persuasively. Well, when I understand the Army problem-solving model, when I'm communicating how we're going to solve a problem, I use those 7 steps as I brief people so they understand this is how my thought process was, and this is how I want to solve that problem. And so now I've got a tool to help communicate that and be more influential, because I'm using Army doctrine to show, okay, this is how I solve that problem. What's interesting is at the direct level, I've got to have that ability to speak and provide direction to people. But the other part of that is I've got to work on my writing abilities, because as I go up to the organizational strategic level, I do most of my communications through briefings, but a lot of it's through emails and correspondence to large groups of people. So that's a continuous development piece. And we start here in the basic course with them writing their own leadership philosophy papers, and give them some, understanding, what is the Army style, bottom line up front pieces. And then that goes into that third piece of the outcomes, which is understanding and applying elements of effective leader interpersonal skills. This first week in the basic course, you spend a lot of time understanding yourself. Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I believe things to be true? And to help understand what is my learning style? How do I deal with conflict? And just for my ability to understand that piece, I've got what we call a leader's identity. I figure out where my leader's identity is. A lot of that comes from my own self-reflection, but there's a lot of feedback in the class from other students of what behaviors did you demonstrate? And then that goes to that fourth course outcome, which understand and apply the basic leadership principles. And it goes back to what is an Army leader supposed to be, and then what does an Army leader do? And we spend a lot of time talking about that. Now, the first week of the basic course is what is an Army leader, and the second week of the course is focused on what does an Army leader do to help develop those teams, and that's where our big focus is. And then the last outcome, it deals with embracing lifelong learning, self-development, but also to push that self-development to inspire subordinates for self-development. Whether I'm a direct level, organizational, strategic level leader, I have got to continue to develop myself, and the people under me I need to continue to develop. So that's one of the things that I find in the basic course, that it makes no difference what level I'm at. I've got to continue to work on those 5 outcomes throughout my military career to be an influential leader at whatever level I'm at.
Okay. Now, you guys use some instruments in the basic course to help people arrive at what it is that kind of makes them tick, or to increase self-awareness of individuals. What are some of the instruments that you use in the basic course?
We focus with COBE learning self-assessments, and then the Thomas Kilmann conflict model.
TKI.
The TKI. What's interesting, though, in the DL portion, if you take the basic course non-resident through that, you get to take those 2 instruments too online and get the results from those instruments. But it really helps you to understand how do I learn on the learning styles. But the key thing is, the second part of that is, now I understand how I learn. Now when I'm spending time as a leader coaching people, I understand this is the way I learn might be different than the people that I work with, and that I need to adjust my style and look at what their learning style is to become more influential when I'm doing coaching with my people.
Okay. Well, let's talk about those 2 just for a minute then. So let's go with Kolb's LSI. What are some of the outcomes that come from that? How many, like in MBTI, there's 16 different personality types that come from that instrument. When it comes to LSI, how many different outcomes are there?
There's 4 different outcomes that we focus on the basic course. And those 4 outcomes really give that student that opportunity to understand how they see the world, but also how the other 3 outcomes, when they brief back their findings, how they see themselves.
What are
Whether
those?
it's accommodating.
Okay, accommodating. What does that mean, really, accommodating? So, in the context of LSI,
LSI, accommodating deals with a person who, I want to get the job done.
Okay,
And I have less fear to jump right into it, but I might have to redo the project 2 or 3 times or change things in route as I'm trying to develop the final solution. But I'm okay with it. It's kind of like Larry the Cable Guy. Let's just get her done. And so there's a lot of that focus. I want to get things done, and I want to get them done fairly quickly.
Okay.
I like to operate. Usually, those type people like to operate off a checklist, and I like checking things out.
So that's accommodating. And then what's another one?
Diverging is another learning style, and diverging is more focused on, I want to read and understand, and I also want that to work with people. And so diverging focuses a lot on, I like to brainstorm and see all the different options. And those kind of people are really great when you're sitting down there brainstorming, kind of thinking out of the box piece. But once they finally decide this is what they want to do, they hold off until they figure out exactly what they want, and then they'll go for it.
Okay.
Now that kind of goes in for the next style, which is assimilating. Now, assimilators like to spend a lot of time gathering facts and information, and they spend most of the time gathering those facts and information from themselves. They like reading it, looking up in the books, and so when they execute a mission, it's a one-time shot. They just want to get it done right the first time. So an assimilator, what's interesting though, when assimilators and accommodators operate together in a group setting and a problem gets thrown out, sometimes you'll see accommodators will jump in and start talking because they're really thinking with their mouth. And an assimilator is sitting there trying to think with their head. But if I don't understand that people are accommodators and assimilators, I might get a misperception that that assimilator who's thinking, trying to figure out what information they need, well, they're not participating. They're not taking part. And so I could get upset saying, well, they don't care, when in actuality, they're thinking, except for they're thinking in their head, where an accommodator is thinking with their mouth.
Okay.
And then there's converging. And on the converging side, they're more, let's get her done, but they're more focused on, they want to get the facts and information to decide what is the best course of solution. And so they figure that piece out. What makes them different between an accommodating learning styles, accommodators gather information and facts, but they gather it more from getting information from other people. Where converging, they like to do a lot of their own research, and then they set their goals and move forward.
Okay. Interesting. And so I think with those type of instruments, once we learn a little bit about ourselves, we can also learn to appreciate some of the differences in the way other people operate. I think just for some people to realize that not everybody is like me, and that's okay. In fact, and I think in high-performing teams, it's beneficial to have people who have different modes of operating.
Yes, and I agree with that. What's interesting, what I really like about the basic course, is also people find out that there's other people like me. Some people have a fear that, oh, I'm just different because I don't operate the same as those other people. Well, in the basic course, when you're operating with 16 different people and we take that instrument and they divide up, they go, hey, there's people just like me. Mm-hmm. So besides understanding other people, it also reinforces that, hey, I'm a good person. I think, but I just think in a different way. I learn in a different manner.
Okay. And then when we look at, we'll kind of move on to the other one now, TKI. How many different outcomes are there with the TKI instrument?
Well, on the TKI, there's 5 different preferences. And I'm going to go back to the LSI for a minute, the learning styles. These are preferences. This does not mean that is, just because that instrument said that you have this preference, does not mean that that's the way you are. You have a choice. And in certain tasks, you might change your preference to be more influential. And that leads us back to TKI. It provides where my preference is when I'm dealing with conflict. But that preference does not mean that is the only way I deal with conflict. And depending on the situation, I change when I'm dealing with conflict. Mm-hmm. One of the modes for dealing with conflict, they call it avoid or withdrawal. Mm-hmm. And avoid and withdrawal is an effective way to deal with conflict when you're dealing with situations where maybe people's feelings, tempers are pretty high, and there needs to be kind of a cooling off period so we can think about this. Mm-hmm. The other one is competing. Now, competing deals with, I know what I want, and I'm going to go for it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to really compete for that. Now, there's some advantages and disadvantages, but as a direct level leader, that is one mode that I might have to do, especially when decisions are unpopular, that I have to go, okay, we're going to do it this way. I know you don't want to do it this way, but this is the way we're going to do it. The other mode is, again, called accommodating, but that is the relationship is more important than just what we're having this discussion over.
Right.
Now, an example would be, I want to go out to dinner with my wife. I really don't care where we go out to dinner at. I just want to be with my wife. So if she says, I want to go to dinner at this place, I'm fine with that. The bottom line is, my purpose is, hey, the relationship's important and I want to spend time with her.
Right.
So sometimes that gets looked at as a person that doesn't care. Yeah, I care, but I'm caring about something a little bit different, Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean I'm wishy-washy either. My goal is, hey, I want to spend time with somebody.
Okay.
And then the other one is compromise, and compromise is a win-lose situation. I'm going to get some of the things that I desire, but I'm going to have to give up some things to achieve that desire and with that other person. So that's one of the other modes. And then the last mode is collaboration. Now, collaboration, what I find is collaboration is a win-win situation. But collaboration does take time.
Right.
And I'm going to achieve my goal, and that other person I'm collaborating with will achieve their goal. I think a great example of collaboration is you see senior officers and you'll see SESs doing this collaboration with other organizations. Each organization has to achieve their mission, but if they both can achieve their mission, they can achieve a higher goal. I think that's where you'll see memorandums of agreement between organizations.
Right.
Each organization gets what they want, but there's a higher goal that they've developed.
Okay.
So those are the 5 modes of conflict that we spend some time talking about in the basic course, and that helps us get my leader identity clear.
I once saw somebody who had developed their own model for conflict resolution from the Thomas Kilmann Index, the TKI, and kind of written it on a 3x5 card. And they take it with them wherever they go. And I don't know if you've seen this before, and that you've got 2 axes. On one axis, you have the importance of the relationship, and on the other axis, you have the importance of the issue. Have you seen this? And then you draw a quadrant. So you got a quadrant. So in the quadrant that's down low, where the importance of the relationship and the importance of the issue are both low, just avoid, withdraw. It's not worth it. And then as you move up to where the issue may be important, but the relationship isn't, maybe that's a time where you can compete. Now, as we move up to where the relationship is important, but the issue isn't as important, as you mentioned the example, where to go out to eat with your wife, that's where we need to accommodate. And then when it comes to where both are important, the issue is important and the relationship is important, that's where we need to collaborate. And then in the center of it all, though, if you kind of draw a quadrant in the center, you would have the compromise. There's always room for compromise in any of these things. I kind of have to look, but as it's kind of the kind of the hub in there to look for. But you kind of have to decide: is this a place to compromise, or do I need to compete? Do I compromise or do I accommodate? And for some people that say, I have no idea how to deal with conflict resolution. It's a simple little thing to draw, a tool you can draw on a 3x5 card and pull it out. Is this a situation where the relationship is important and the issue maybe not? So, okay, here's what I'll consider doing. I don't know if you've seen that applied that way.
Yeah. And I think that's an effective tool. Once I understand myself, then how can I use that tool for that situation to achieve what I'm trying to achieve?
And knowing what your preferences and where you tend to go most of the time.
You're right.
In the next episode, I continue my conversation with Jeff Irvine as we discuss the self-development domain and the content process model.
What am I doing today to help that person feel significant? And what am I doing today to help that person feel competent? To get what you talked about earlier is I want commitment.
That's next time on the AMSC podcast. And we welcome your feedback. Please write us at usarmy.leavenworth.tradoc.mbx.amsc-podcast@mail.mil, or you can just write us at amscpodcast@gmail.com.